Hello everyone, how's it going? So we're talking about Highguard again. This well just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Now, for a short summary of this game came out like not even a month ago, well, about a month ago, and it was promoted at the Game Awards. It was given the final slot by Jeff Keighley himself for free, which they never disclosed for some reason. It was incredibly stupid not to do that because everyone just assumed that they paid for it. And again, they saw the Game Awards cost a lot of money. I think it cost like over $1 million. Like, it's not cheap, but he gave it to them for free. And apparently the rumor is that there was someone else who was supposed to take the slot, but they had to pull out, so he gave it to Highguard, but that also has not been confirmed yet. But regardless, this game was promoted at the Game Awards. Basically, people were calling it Concord 2, the new big failure. I mean, live services and hero shooters, unless you're like Deadlock or Arc Raiders, where you can literally hit the ground running and you deliver very strong gameplay and trailers leading up to the release, you're not going to succeed. But nevertheless, the game launched to over 100k players, like across all platforms. Then it just plummeted. It saw a small resurgence once they added the 5 versus 5 mode, but yeah, you can see here only about 400 players are playing this game. It's basically dead, and they had to lay off a lot of staff because Tencent, which again, they didn't disclose that either. They kept saying they were indie, a small studio. No, they were funded by Tencent, and Tencent apparently pulled out of the company the second the numbers started plummeting, and they had to lay off everyone. And right now only a skeleton crew is operating, and I doubt they're even going to last by the end of this month. They're likely going to have to just cut everything out. At least that's how I see it. I mean, when you have numbers like this and your entire model is dependent on microtransactions, yeah, it's just gone. This is dead. There's nothing that's gonna bring this back. But yeah, then there was also the rant from one of the former developers at Highlight. I did a video on this. Wildlight, I said Highlight. Wildlight, where he went on a rant blaming gamers about how the game failed, calling it Concord. And then there was also the situation where he said that people who internally played the game said it was incredible, they loved it, and people even who didn't like it and provide constructive criticism still loved it. It was very confusing stuff because like, first off, like, no one's gonna tell you like this something can't fail. Like, anything can fail at any time. Nothing is foolproof. Regardless, he was kind of laughed out of the room after this tweet longer, and he deleted his Twitter account. But Jason Schreier's come out with an investigation report about this, and he always delivers banger reports such as the one with Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda. Well, we're gonna look at this and see what he dug up. Hi everyone, today we got bonus column unpacking one of 2026 first gaming disasters, the sudden collapse of Wildlight Entertainment in its first game, Highguard. On a warm evening this past December in Los Angeles, employees from video game studio Wildlight Entertainment gathered in the lobby bar of the JW Marriott. They just announced their game Highguard at the Game Awards hosted inside a theater next door. Now it was time to drink and celebrate. At the same time, a less upbeat story was unfolding on the internet, but the reveal of Highguard was met with a flood of negative comments. Viewers questioned why the Game Awards' final announcement was yet another multiplayer shooter. Some even drew comparisons to Concord, the infamous PlayStation game that flopped so badly it was removed from stores less than 2 weeks after its debut. Shortly after, in late January, Highguard launched. Initially, the game attracted a large audience, but the interest dwindled quickly. And less than 3 weeks later, Wildlight laid most of its employees, a distressing turn of the events for the studio's small, close-knit team of veteran developers, many of whom loved working together and had shipped big hits in the past. Okay, it wasn't a small studio. It was over 100 employees, and they were funded by Tencent. Like, they're not indie. Like, there's this, like, I also believe that Arc Raiders was indie. They're not indie, apparently, either. Like, it's starting to become apparent that a lot of these companies that are funded by very wealthy backers use the term indie as a marketing term, like how fast food companies will market their fried chicken sandwich as artisanal, trying to make it seem healthy. Like, it's just a marketing term at this point. Like, you really have to dig in to see if they're really indie, like with games like Schedule 1 and Eugenics. Like, at this point, I'm just, like, wondering, like, do we have to dig into the fiscal records to tell if you're indie? Did you take money from, like, Take-Two Interactive or something like this? It's wild right now. What happened over the last 2 weeks? I talked to 10 former Wildlight employees about the game's development, its promising beginnings, and how things went away. The story in 2021 when a small group of people who worked for the game developer Respawn, a subsidiary of Electronic Arts, decided to quit to start an independent company. They missed the freedom of their pre-EA days, Dusty Welch, co-founder and chief executive officer, told me in an interview last month. Welch didn't mention any key reason for the exodus. In 2019, they had released Apex Legends, a battle royale shooter in which dozens of players fight across a giant map. The game proved to be a massive success, generating more than $3 billion in revenue. Yet as sales piled up, some of the creatives who worked on it felt that they weren't benefiting enough from the resultant windfall. According to people familiar with what happened, who asked not to be identified, discussing non-public information. Wait a minute. They say it wasn't. They didn't mention a key reason, but they just did. The reason they left was because they felt like they deserved more money for delivering a hugely successful battle royale live service game. That seems like a reason to leave. But at the same time, it's just like, I mean, maybe I'm being too negative about this, but if you work for a company, you get paid for the work that you're doing, and then they give you the money to make products. That's kind of how it works. And if the product is a massive success, well, the money goes back into the company. Yes, I know CEOs take massive bonuses and stuff like that. It does suck, but that's kind of how the world operates. It kind of reminds me of that show Mad Men, when Peggy, I believe her name is, she got really angry at Don Draper when they were staying late to come up ideas about a big marketing plan for mattresses, and basically she was so upset that he won some sort of award even though it was her idea. And then he basically said to her, I gave you money. You give me ideas, I give you money, and then I use those ideas in order to create advertisements. That's how this works. And it kind of reminds me of that. Like, this is how it works. Just because they got rich off your ideas and hard work, they funded it. They get the product in return. That's how I'm looking at this. I mean, when I worked retail and fast food, it didn't matter if I worked 12 hours, 24 hours, the company paid me accordingly. They didn't have to give me extra money or anything. The Wildlife founders decided to do things differently. One of their plans was to set up a profit-sharing program so that if the studio did another big success, everyone would benefit. An enticing setup that ultimately helped Welch and his co-founders attract many of former Respawn colleagues to the new company. So it was absolutely about money. So this doesn't make any sense right here. They left because they wanted more money and they wanted a bigger cut of the product they made. So, yeah, they just basically try to copy the success of Apex Legends, hoping to capture lightning in the bottle. They didn't work a second time. It worked the first time, not a second time. Armed with significant amount of funding from Tencent Holdings. Again, see, Tencent funded them. They're not a small studio. When one of the biggest companies on the planet funds you, you're not indie, you're not a small studio. It's like saying, oh yeah, we're small and everything. Oh yeah, by the way, Elon Musk and Bill Gates are funding us. You're gonna be like, wait, what? Oh yeah, and top of it, Google's also funding us. Wildlife began hiring employees and making plans for his first game. The founders knew that they wanted to make another multiplayer shooter, but they hoped to avoid the crowded battle royale market. So instead, they looked to Rust, a survival game in which players can raid enemy bases, and built their own. They began construction levels and design mechanics for what would envision as a survival-focused shooter. 2 years into development, the team realized that the design wasn't working, in part because the amount of freedom conflicted with their goals for highly competitive play, according to people familiar with the events. Also, the scope was too big. Still, some parts were salvageable. The base build and raiding aspects of the survival game in particular seemed worth keeping. In January 2024, the team pivoted to what would become Highguard, a raid shooter that streamlined many of survival aspects into a faster and more competitive game. Over the next 2 years, the Wildlife crew played around with various ideas and player compositions, such as 4-on-3 players before landing on 3-on-3 matches at the foundation of the game. They aim to release Highguard in early 2026, expand over time as a live service game, adjusting feedback along the way. Many of the Wildlife developers were interested to substantially develop a single-player story set in the world they've created. Okay, see, this is wrong. You're already overstretching your workload. Focus on what you need to do, but this is just like craziness. Like, yeah, we're never gonna get this, but look, I can understand when you have a sense of pride for what you're making, but you have to be reasonable what you're making. You don't just go into 0 to 100, you steadily go to that speed. So this right here, like, I don't know, it just feels like they were getting too much toxic positivity here. Like, that's definitely a thing that happened based on the report given to us by that former developer who deleted his Twitter account. It just seems like everyone was just, like, giving them what they wanted to hear instead of what they needed to hear. Such a move would follow in the footsteps of their former company, which had released a multiplayer-only Titanfall before eventually graduating to Titanfall 2, which included both multiplayer and highly regarded single-player. They hope Highguard would be a foundational, grander ambitions to come. Oh my god, no. Look, again, I can understand, but take it slow. In the year leading up to launch, Wildlight tested out Highguard extensively, both among their own staff and with external players. They worked closely with members of Tencent Temu Studio Group, although they tried to keep that secret. When I asked last month, Welch did not say who funded the game, and Tencent's employees who worked on it are not mentioned in the game's credit. Journalist Steven Totelo broke the news. Yeah, again, like, this is not a small studio. They had... you had an entire QA department and one of the biggest companies in the world helping you with this. Dude, it's just like... Stop lying. Both Tencent and Welch declined to comment for this story. Reactions for both testers were mostly positive, but they may have been blind spots in the process. According to people familiar with Test, Highguard was a complicated game to learn and was more fun when using voice chat to communicate with other players. When they tested it with microphones off, made for a much worse experience, former Wildlight employees said. Honestly, I played without a microphone for most of the game, and I had no problem figuring everything out. But then again, I've played so many video games. I'm like 36 years old. I've played well over, I would say, 1,000 games in my lifetime. So a lot of mechanics, I can understand if it's confusing for someone who just picks up and play this game. But I guess it's different. I'm a seasoned gamer. Having developers on hand to answer questions and explain mechanics also led to different conditions that players would definitely face when the game released into the wild. One solution has been open up the game to the outside world to start building a community and garner feedback from a wider audience, a process that helped the other multiplayer games such as Arc Raiders and Battlefield 6 find success. Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, based on the tweet longer of that former developer, it just seems like they were just given lots of positive feedback. It's strange that if they used Tencent's QA department for this, they didn't give them harsh feedback. Like, it's really weird that everyone played this game and didn't see all the red flags. It's rather confusing. And I know a lot of people would point to Jeff Keighley saying, like, hey, he didn't see any of these red flags. And look, taste is on the beholder. Some people like coffee, some people like tea, some people like soda, some people hate steak. Taste varies between people, but I find it really, really hard to believe that out of everyone who tested this game, no one started to open up about these very glaring effects. Like, just looking at the characters. I think Jason put a picture of this here. Not seeing, like, I can't get a good picture here. At least I don't see one. Maybe it's down here. Well, you know what? Well, I'll just go into the Steam page. No one looked at these character designs and just like said no. Like, this is a bad idea. Like, literally John Highguard. That's his nickname, the guy. Like, no one looked at this guy and they said no. It's confusing. Like, it can't be like that. But when the notion of came up at Wildlight, leadership nixed it. Oh, wait, what? They wanted to recreate what they had worked on with Apex Legends, which had kept it secret and to announce and launched it at the same time. So it was fucking leadership? So the actual developers, they're like, we should get feedback from gamers and start to pivot based on their feedback. And these guys were just like, well, it worked for Apex Legends, let's just do that again. Apex Legends with lightning in the bottle. Like, the characters looked freaking cool. Bloodhound looked fucking cool. I looked at a guy, I was like, I want to play that guy. There was no one who looked like Bloodhound in freaking Highguard, or even close to how cool he looked. None of the characters look cool. Like, it just sounds like they were sniffing their own farts. Like, said, oh, we did this once, it didn't work, we'll just try it again. I can see the perspective of that, but you also have to think about it like this. What are the chances you're going to replicate that same level of success? Like, that should be the first question. And if your own developers are telling you this, maybe you should take their advice. As a result, Highguard built on the wrong kind of buzz. Last year, when the Game Awards orchestrator Jeff Keighley visited his studio to check out the game, he liked it enough to feature it on his show, but in the 7 weeks between December announcement and January 26th launch, Wildlight stayed quiet. Even the gamers online speculated about whether the game might be delayed or cancelled. Employees at Wildlight were encouraged to stay off social media where the negativity was amassed, and well, that other person didn't. Like, they started to answer back to and clap back to other people, which again, I get. Like, if you have 1,000 people, like, yelling at you with multiple Twitter accounts, I think it's gonna get to you. At that point, I feel like you should just, like, turn off, delete Twitter off your phone and just forget about it. That's what I do if something like that happened. I know it's easier said than done. Most people's response when they get attacked verbally is to fight back. It's just like getting punched in the face. You feel like you're being physically attacked. The best way is to just ignore it. And I know there will be people out there who say, well, they should take positive criticism. We respond more to negative criticism than positive. Like, look at the way the news is fashioned. They spend more time talking about the negativity of life than the positivity of life because it gets more clicks. It's the same thing that works in life. Like, you're more likely to stare at negative reviews than positive reviews. Like, how many of you do that? You look at the negative reviews first rather than the positives. It's just, it sucks. People who worked at Wildlight described the studio as a healthy, collaborative, transparent environment that many of them loved working there until the final 2 months. Again, it just sounds like all of you just refuse to look at what's happening. Like, again, you should have thought to yourself, another hero shooter live service game. Red flag right there. Like, you're not Deadlock. And even with Deadlock, Steam owns the platform. Like, they can have as many flops as they want. But in this case, you guys just refuse to accept reality. I know it seems like I'm contradicting what I just said, but you guys had to understand, like, just understanding the gaming industry in a general sense. Just look at what just happened. You literally just saw what happened with Concord. How could you not see the similarities? At that point, they said morale began to tank and there was no straight answer about what success would look like, leading to staff to grumble that they might be approaching things the wrong way. So it took them then to realize that, rather than, like, it seems that, was it staff or leadership? Because up here, it seems that leadership are the ones who were the problem, but here it makes it seem like it was staff who was the problem. Like, which is it? Is it staff or leadership? Like, was it both? But then, who are the people who were apparently fighting against this? When Highguard came out on January 26th, the player count was impressive, peaking at 100,000 concurrent players on the PC platform Steam, which is similar across PlayStation and Xbox. Well, we have no idea of knowing that because they keep those numbers secret, but generally it's like take the half numbers on PC, especially with a first-person shooter, and that's what you get for Xbox and PlayStation. So 50, 200k. But early impressions proved negative, and the game was free to play. It don't generate revenue from in-game payments that would require players to stick around. Reviews criticized the number of elements, including the large map sizes and tedious mechanics such as mining, many of which were vestiges of earlier versions of Highguard. So wait, that mining mechanic was from the earlier version of, like, they were making a Rust-like game? Oh my god. Critics also pointed out the game was so complicated and much less fun than if you were playing with strangers with mics weren't on, a problem that Wildlight may have identified earlier by letting the public try it out once the game before release. That's true. If they just let them try it, maybe they could have gotten feedback about the fucking tutorial. In the days followed, Highguard's biggest problem became player retention, a challenge that Wildlight managed emphasized to the staff multiple times. A week after the game's launch, they lost roughly 90% of the players, which was a scary number. A hastily released 5 versus 5 mode was played, but it didn't bring people back. The thing is, once someone leaves a game, especially a free-to-play game, getting them back is next to impossible. Like, it literally is just done, because then they delete the game off their console or their PC, and then they have to re-download the game. Like, some of these games, like, I don't know how large Highguard is, as it says here. Okay, 25 gigabytes. It's not large, but it's still taking around, if you have a good internet connection, maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes of you just waiting around for it to download. Let's face it, no one's going to do that. Like, once it's done, it's done. Like, getting someone to play the 5 versus 5 mode again is next to impossible. Like, I had to re-download it to play the 5 versus 5 mode, and I was just like, God damn it. Still, Wildlight staff were under the impression that they had enough financial runway to keep working on the game and address the issues for at least a few months. But all hands meeting on February 11th, just 2 weeks after the game's release, the company told its employees that the studio was out of money and most of their 100-person team would be laid off. What do you think that you would be able to have months worth of income in order to survive? Like, what? Why? How would you come up with that? Do you think Tencent will keep giving you money after seeing this? Like, the reviews, the Steam chart? They're going to be like, nope, we're cutting our losses. Like, Tencent is incredibly cutthroat. They will literally just say, this isn't working, done. They would stay employees for another week and receive small severance. Like, at this point, like, I hate the fact that I'm being cruel here, but the reality is that I get that this was their dream job. They thought they were going to replicate the success of Apex Legends. They were banking on their pedigree. They were hoping that everything that they knew based on their past successes they could replicate. They were hoping that they were able to fix the wrongs, I guess, and gain the massive success and financial security that Apex Legends afforded the top brass in EA. But like, anyone would have told you no. You start with smaller projects, then you move on to a big project like this. You start like with small little indie games, then you move your way up, you build your catalog, you build your reputation. You don't go straight for the holy grail. You build your way up to that, learning the dungeon patterns of where the traps are. You start building out and mapping your route, then you get to the holy grail in that situation. During the meeting, management said that Tencent had pulled the studio's funding. No kidding! According to the people familiar with the event, although the company didn't spell it out, staff were left with the impression that the financial contingent upon hitting certain metrics, such as retention rate, which they'd failed to come even close to achieving. Exactly. Like, Tencent is just going to be like, this isn't working, we're going to put our money somewhere else. Like, When we asked about what went wrong, several former Wildlight developers used the word hubris. Exactly what I just said. Holy crap. I believe by the company's leadership that they could emulate what they had worked on in the past Apex Legends, no matter how much the gaming landscape has changed since then. Dear God. It's exact. Sniffing their own farts. Refusing to accept reality. After they'd made one of the last decade's biggest hits. Look, Apex Legends was successful when it launched. It's no longer the same level of success. Do you really think if it was maintaining its level of success, EA would have pulled the mobile version of the game? In fact, let's actually look. I can't see. Yeah, look at that. Less than 100,000 players. This is not good right now. Like, this game is literally falling out of popular appeal already. Like, it's on life support, I would say, at this point. I'm surprised EA hasn't pulled the plug right now. 81,000 players for a game that, like this, is not good. Let's actually compare it to another one. Rainbow Six Siege. So, this is, yeah, it's in the same state. They're both, like, in, like, they're not in good states right now. Like, unless, I would say, like, around 100,000 players is where you should be. And seeing that these games are free to play and really need those microtransaction sales, yeah. Less than 20 people remain at Wildlight. They're continuing to update Highguard with the hope of salvaging the game. It's dead. It's gone. It's done. Like, at this point, I'm surprised to have anyone there right now. Although it's an uphill battle in the game, the team, yeah, it's done. 600 players. It's just buried. So it seems that leadership thought they could just replicate what they did for Apex Legends, banking on their pedigree, their prestigious nature, their experience, and instead of, you know, doing the sound thing, starting a small company working your way up with small indie titles to build your reputation, your credit, having a back catalog. Like, that's the thing, like, a lot of people don't recognize how valuable back catalog of games are when it comes to profitability of a company. Having just that sizable selection of games can really make it or break it for a company's fiscal report. I mean, look at Capcom. Capcom has, like, yeah, I'm part of their program, but they have a extremely well-constructed backlog of games. As much as people hate on Ubisoft, so does Ubisoft. Ubisoft has an excellent collection of back catalog games, from the Assassin's Creed franchise, Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon. I'm just surprised they don't just remaster all their games and put them on Steam without DRM in some way. Like, I feel like they would see massive success for that, but then again, the Rayman game just came out and people are not happy about that, the way they handled it. But yeah, like, it does seem that the leadership refused to look at reality. They refused to accept that they may have been wrong, and they just hope that this would have been a huge success so they can say, oh yeah, we were right, see, everything was going to be fine. Yeah, this is just like another example of what not to do if you start a studio. And also the lies. Like, the lies. This is a small studio. This is an indie game. Like, the second you start, like, if you're lying about that, why should we believe anything you're saying at this point? Like, that to me is one of the worst qualities. Like, there are genuine indie games out there, people who struggle every day, who just want to get even a modicum of that attention, who never even recoup the Steam publishing fee that they have to invest into, which they likely go into save their savings or even debt to try and get the game just on the store. They never get they sometimes never get recognized. There are a lot of games that barely ever make it to recognition. Like, they barely get 100 players, but they hope that maybe a big streamer or content creator will show them. Maybe a video essay will come out about their game, or maybe it'll get featured on IGN, even just to boost it up. That's what really hurts to me. The fact there are so many indie games out there. I try to push as many indie games as I can, like Scars Above. I think that game is incredible. If you're a fan of Mass Effect, please play Scars Above. It's an incredible sci-fi game. Or Outland, that's another incredible. Well, Outland was made by House Marnik and they're owned by Sony now, but still, that was when they were indie. That game was freaking incredible. I love that game. Yeah, it just seems that it just comes off as disingenuous and very hurtful to people who actually are indie, who would kill for something like that. But in this case, Highguard, it's basically just like with Concord, a situation of people who refuse to look at reality, toxic positivity, refusal. Like, it seems there was a combination of leadership and a combination of staffers, but there were people there who were willing to, like, say, hey, we need a playtest, hey, we need feedback, hey, this is not working out, and they got pushed aside or just ignored and told, no, we know what's better, we're gonna do the same thing with Apex Legends, we made Titanfall and Titanfall 2, and then this came out. Like, yeah, and I mean, I guess I was hoping a little more about, like, how the game was developed, in the sense that, because it just kind of reminds me a lot of Back 4 Blood, like how they kept toting that game was from the creators of Left 4 Dead, and then when the game came out, it was worse. Like, it didn't meet that same level of quality, and it just highlighted how much more Valve was involved with Left 4 Dead, how their influence was the reason the game turned out the way it was. And I feel like with Highguard, it feels like it's the same situation. Like, the staff who actually made Titanfall 2 and 1 and Apex Legends what it is maybe didn't go to Wildlight. I don't know. It just feels like it was just such a stark contrast to what those games delivered. Like, Titanfall 2 to me is one of the greatest military campaigns in gaming, like right up there with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern Warfare 2, not the remake. But it just feels like something was really off. I don't know, maybe we'll find out with another investigative report, we'll see, but there you have it. Highguard was a result of hubris on leadership who refused to accept reality. And while I am deeply sad for them, this was likely their dream job. They wanted this to be a success, and losing that after just what it seems to be like 2 months of hell, because there was the Game Awards, everyone on social media, the game's launch, then the post-launch. Like, I can understand that. Like, it's never easy. But tell me what you think in the comments below. Did you play Highguard? What do you think of it? Are you still playing it? And that's it for me. Goodbye.